This is the story of Carrigeeden. Originally built in the 1800s as two semi-detached houses, it's on a prominent coastal site in Greystones. In the 1960s, the houses were joined together and a 3-storey extension was added to facilitate religious retreats. Since 2009, here at Carrigeeden, Tiglin, an approved housing body, has been providing supported temporary accommodation for vulnerable individuals who have exited addiction and now seek to exit homelessness. In 2016, Wicklow County Council became aware that the property was being sold. There was a significant time pressure to prevent the ever-evolving community from becoming homeless. Wicklow County Council, Tiglin, the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage and the Department of Health worked in a quick and highly collaborative manner to ensure funding was available to enable the building to be purchased and upgraded. This was a highly unique project for both Wicklow County Council and the department. This was a dishevelled, neglected building, an eyesore on this prominent site in town. It interfered with the presentation of the seafront and sat as a hulking mass at the end of the cove. The retrofit and remodelling works have transformed it into a landmark building that the townspeople can be proud of.
Hi, and welcome to Carrigeeden.
Carrigeeden has re-established its presence and stature as an important building in the centre of town, allowing it to reconnect with the local community. Tiglin and Wicklow County Council, in conjunction with the design team, displayed a high level of cooperation and vision with the conception and completion of this project. A significant aspect of this project was that it was occupied throughout all stages. Carrigeeden now provides residents with high-quality, modern, independent living accommodation, while at the same time provides them with support from the resident community through the shared living facilities and access to the management team. Located in the centre of town and close to the Dart station, residents are ideally located to take up employment or training opportunities in the local community. The aesthetics and finishes have had the effect of unifying the building and making it more of a whole. It now sits very comfortably on the site and links across the cove to the colourful older buildings at the harbour and marina end of the bay. It's the first building that you see as you round the corner of Cliff Road. Wicklow County Council had very clear objectives for the site from the outset. The architect facilitated Wicklow County Council's and the tenants' vision for the site and enhanced it further with sheltered outdoor terraces and gardens, and reimagining the outbuilding as a temporary kitchen and then as a potential coffee kiosk for the further enjoyment of the building community. This building was a departure from the typical accommodation provided by our housing section. It is a large refurbishment project. Clients would be living here for months rather than permanently. The accommodation changed from dilapidated, drafty shared bedrooms and bathrooms to 35 ensuite single rooms that were well heated and insulated. The kitchens and common rooms were transformed and became very pleasant to use, and they were connected to the outside all of a sudden again. Building a strong relationship with Tiglin early on helped the smooth running of this complex project. Working closely with Tiglin to understand their unique needs ensured a great outcome to this project. The end result? The high quality building and its surrounds send a message to the residents that they are valued. It was very satisfying for Wicklow County Council to talk to the managers of Tiglin and the people living in Carrigeeden as the project progressed.
So I was kicked out of home, I was gone out of school, so I had nothing left, nothing to keep me stable, nothing to depend on, so I was left on my own on the streets. I was very young and I was very scared as well. So I came to the realisation that drink helped. Like, I was drinking every single day anyway, I couldn't go a day without drinking, but it got worse. I got more violent, got more angry, and I just ended up living in the streets for about 6 years. Just stuck in that cycle between prison, homeless hostels and the streets for 6 years. So Tiglin gave me the tools to deal with my addictive personality and to substitute it with healthy things, so that when I'm dealt with, because I know now that I have addictive personality, so Tiglin have given me the tools and the things in life to be aware of that and so I can deal with it in better ways. It's mad when I look at my life now, because 23 months ago I was living under a bridge in Dublin. Now I'm living in Wicklow, and sure, they didn't care I was from Cork. Do you know? Like, I'm on the Wicklow County Council now. I'm living in Wicklow. I'm looking to have my life, further my life in Wicklow. Do you know? So having a home here in Carrigeeden, like, you can learn all the tools you want to help your addiction. But if you don't have a home and somewhere safe to go at night and a bed, like, eventually them tools will wear out and they'll become useless, because out there the world will get you, like, and eventually it'll break you down. But if I have somewhere safe to come, somewhere to live and somewhere to sleep at night, and a beautiful home like this, like, there's nothing, I have everything I need to go on and build a good solid foundation for my life in the future.
So I was living on the canal in a tent in Clondalkin, and I realised that if I didn't do something now, that it was probably going to end there for me. So my sister knew somebody who went into Tiglin, and that's how I heard about it. So a 4 to 5 month treatment centre, what probably wasn't going to fix me. What I needed was long residential treatment with an aftercare support system in place. So I did my 11 months up in Tiglin. Through there I got the key working I needed, I got the counselling I needed, and I got to meet the good people to work on the problems that I brought into Tiglin. I done my 11 months up there, and then I came down to Carrigeeden for the reintegration period. So when I first came down to Carrigeeden, I went on to the day programme. Through the day programme, they support you in the independent living that Carrigeeden provides, with different sort of relapse prevention groups, weekly planners, key working, counselling if needed, and then eventually they progress you on to doing a bit of work experience and working forward in your life to see where you want to go. Carrigeeden provided me with a place where I was around people who knew what they were talking about, knew what recovery was and knew how to sustain it, with a mix of people who came down from the centre who were in the same boat. So we were all on the same page, we cared for each other, we look out for each other, and the care and environment that Greystone provides in itself is the perfect place to do that.
My life at the moment living in Carrigeeden is I work full time 40 hours a week out in Tiglin Men's Centre. I play hurling with Aerogue. I go home to visit my son, and I swim in the sea, and I go hiking up in the mountains.
Carrigeeden has really helped me to put a value on my life. My life is really fulfilled with the activities that I do throughout the week. I work 40 hours a week. I go for long jogs on the beach, I go swimming, and then on my time off, I either like to hang around with the lads in the house for a good bit of fellowship, or I go home 2 or 3 days of the week to my family.
Would that every local authority in the country had a place like this. I think it would make such a huge difference. Listening to these stories of people who've had their participation in life for one reason or another disrupted, and the manner in which they have been able not just to get out of the immediate space in which they found themselves, but actually to discover a new space and go on and be full of hope and joy. It has been such a positive experience, and there's such great credit to those who had the idea originally, people like Aubrey, and very particularly the local state Wicklow. And I think it's something that Wicklow can be proud of.
So that's the story so far of Carrigeeden. We've shown how it's a story of partnership and collaboration, and how many parties coming together and working together can ensure positive outcomes that may otherwise seem unreachable. It's a story of hope and potential for a vulnerable cohort who've already fought the battle against addiction and are now seeking to exit homelessness. There was a time that it appeared that this project might not proceed, and over 30 residents were at risk of homelessness. Thankfully, due to the collaborative approach, the tenacity and commitment of all involved, this did not come to pass. Further collaboration with the Community Development Directorate and the KWETB in relation to social enterprise on site, with the provision of a training cafe for residents of Carrigeeden, will be another key outcome of the partnership approach.
Good morning and welcome to everyone on this third and final day of what has been a really stimulating conference to date. It's given us a welcome chance to reconnect, to share ideas, and our sincere thanks to the Irish Council of Social Housing for the quality and the relevance of the presentations we've had to date. This morning, we're turning our attention to special needs housing. In particular, we're going to hear examples from two to innovations in terms of delivery of housing for special needs from the Peter McVerry Trust and from Fold Housing. We'll also hear about some of the financial supports that could underpin this type of housing. As you know, private housing bodies have long been to the fore in this area with special needs housing for homeless in particular, for the elderly, for older persons, for young people leaving care, disabilities, a broad range of needs really. It's a very good chance for us this morning to think about, I suppose, just, you know, that cohort of society and how we deliver and what kind of innovations we can bring to improve people's lives in this area. And so I would like to introduce our first speaker this morning, and that is Tom Conroy, who is head of finance and company secretary for the housing finance area, to talk to us about the finance aspects and what's available to approved housing bodies. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you very much. Okay, basically I'll run through briefly what the role of the HFA is. As an accountant, I can't resist the urge to throw some numbers in there. Talk briefly about cost of rental, because we are talking about innovation. Social investment fund, I've been asked to make some mention of that, and maybe of interest to some. Looking forward into the future, and then conclusion at the end. So, why are we here? The HFA, the role of the HFA is to facilitate the delivery of social and affordable housing in Ireland. And well, basically we're a semi-state body. We're around since 1982, working quietly away in the background. We help local authorities and AHBs fund social and affordable housing, but we also help universities fund the development of student accommodation and thereby freeing up rental accommodation in those areas indirectly. Our competitive advantage is low cost finance and no profit motive. And this is enabled by borrowing cheaply from the likes of the National Treasury Management Agency and supranational banks such as the European Investment Bank and the Council of Europe Development Bank, and lend cheaply as a result onto our borrowers. So how do I paint a picture of last year in numbers? At the end of last year, we had over 5.2 billion euros worth of loans outstanding on our loan book, and we had no arrears on any of those loans. We approved over 1 billion euros worth of loan approvals for AHBs, and that was for over 4,500 AHB homes, and a 44% increase on the previous year. And we're scheduled to meet or exceed that amount again this year. Transferred into 773 million in actual new loan advances in last year alone, mostly to HBs. And to enable that growth pattern to continue happening, our guaranteed notes program was increased by 2.5 billion to 7.5 billion. And that enables us to borrow, the vehicle used to borrow from the NTMA and surplus funds from local authorities. Our team has just 15 employees, so that might surprise you a little bit. And the reason we can do what we do with such a small staff complement is because we rely heavily in IT. And that benefited us hugely at the beginning of the lockdown last year, when we had to go from a 100% office working environment to a 100% remote working environment in a very short space of time. But it was relatively painless for ourselves. So it worked to our advantage. 0.04% is the magic number that we add on onto our cost of funds to cover the likes of light heat, wages, pens and pencils. And finally, we plan to double our loan book over the next 5 years, which we use to fund 15,000 homes in social housing, cost rental and house purchase. So that's the HFA in a nutshell. Cost rental is topical at the moment. And in March 2021, the HFA approved the first loan applications for the new affordable housing rental scheme. A total of 93 million in loan finance was approved to AHBs for the provision of 390 affordable rental homes in Dublin, Cork and Kildare. The main picture you see there is of Enniskerry Road being built in step beside South Dublin by Respondent Tua and launched a few weeks ago. Enniskerry Road scheme is a mixed tenure development of 105 social homes and 50 cost rental homes. And just in case there's any sensitivities by the 3 AHBs involved, the inset picture shows the first cost rental homes in Taylor's Hill, Balbriggan by Clewit, completed and opened by the Minister for Housing in July last. So I've been asked to talk a little bit about our social investment fund. The fund was established last year. The aim of the fund was to enable the HFA to support local projects that complement social housing and enable community development. So we kicked it off last year. We had no idea the level of interest it would generate, and we allocated €150,000 towards it. So that was fully drawn down last year with 7 schemes. And due to the level of interest that it generated, we increased this year to 250,000. So for those that are interested, it's open to all HFA customers, so local authorities and certified AHBs. The limit for any one application is 30,000, excluding VAT. It's not to say that you can't have an initiative for a greater amount than that, but that's the maximum that HFA will allocate towards it. 30th of September is the closing date, so get those applications in as soon as you can. And that email address you see there, safapplications@hfa.ie, is what you should use for inquiries and applications. Now, I will say 30th September is looming very quickly. If it does cause undue difficulties for anybody, just please get in touch and we'll see if we can come to some sort of arrangement for you. So promotional activities were, opportunities were limited in 2020 due to the lockdown for the Social Investment Fund. But we arranged one photo shoot. There you can see our CEO, Barry O'Leary, handing over a very large cheque to Tua Housing for their Be Connected initiative. This provided elderly tenants with digital tablets to enable them to stay in touch with friends and family. Another initiative we sponsored was to a smaller AHB, Fusca Housing Association, for the Loving Life Choir to write a song together reflecting on their experience of the COVID-19 lockdown and a re-emergence to normal. And I understand that that's been shortlisted for the ICSH's Community Housing Awards this year. So just to give you an idea of some other initiatives that we sponsored in 2020, just to see the range and diversity of the different schemes that were involved. We have a partnership of Hale, Sligo Mental Health Services and Sligo County Council for the delivery of mental health services to adults. Clewit Housing Association were given funds to transform a commercial ground floor unit into a community space for residents in Balmain, North County Dublin. Louth County Council and Tua Housing were given funds together to originally planned for a playground in Castleguard Manor, RD, County Louth, but this had to be changed when archaeological issues arose and they opted instead for smaller play areas throughout the development instead. Leary, Rathdown County Council were given funds towards the provision of parent supporting programs with My Project Minding You, a local community-based group. And finally, a loan were given funds to refurbish 12 units for older people in Inchicore, Dublin 8 towards purchase of white goods and furniture. So that'll give you an idea of some of the initiatives that were successful in the Social Investment Fund last year. So looking forward into the future, I'm sure you've heard plenty about the Housing for All strategy, which was recently launched. It's already been abbreviated by some as the HFA with a small f, which could lead to some confusion between ourselves and the plan. But that being said, the agency is seen as the primary lender for the acquisition and development of social and affordable housing in the plan. And we are finalising our own 5-year strategy that will tie in closely with it. So from the HFA's perspective, our statutory borrowing limit will increase to 12 billion, which is a good signal to our customers. That'll enable €5 billion worth of new lending to be passed on to our borrowers and increase our loan book by 100% to 10 billion by 2025. So that 5 billion is 1/4 of the overall funding investment plans in the strategy of 20 billion over the next 5 years. Technical universities legislation for the development of more student accommodation. So we already lend to the 6 main universities to broaden it to include the TUIs and further enable more student accommodation to be built. And finally, there was explicit mention of the relationship that the HFA has with international funding partners such as the EIB and CEB. So we have excellent long-standing relationships with both of those banks. We have a number of loan facilities with each, and we're in the process of arranging 2 new loan facilities with each. And the Housing for All strategy explicitly mentions them as an important part of the overall plan for the funding strategy of the plan. So I'm sure you'll agree that the Housing for All strategy is ambitious and it's groundbreaking and is likely to affect significant change over the next 5 years. So it'll be interesting, I think, to look back in 5 years' time at the end of all this to see how things have progressed. In the meantime, the HFA is open for business and there's plenty of funding available for your needs. So pick up the phone, give us a ring, and thank you for your interest.
Sorry, thank you, Tom, for your very good presentation. Give us an overall view of the finance that's available through the Housing Finance Agency. I'd like to welcome in next. We'll be coming back to Tom for questions and answers. Some of them, so please put your questions into the Q&A on the side. I would like to welcome Francis Doherty, who's Director of Services with responsibility for housing development and communications with the Peter McVerry Trust. And Francis, over to you.
Thank you, Mary. Thanks to the ICSH for the invitation to speak today on behalf of Peter McVerry Trust. I'm going to run through some of the work that the Trust has undertaken and is currently undertaken in order to deliver special needs housing, primarily for homeless households or individuals or households affected or at risk of homelessness. So just to give people a quick overview of the Trust, we're a national housing and homeless charity. We're now active in 28 local authority areas. We provide 650 residential units across the country. We're responsible for 61% of the Housing First target nationally. And last year we helped 1,300 people into housing across Ireland. And in total, across the service portfolio in the Trust, we worked with just over 7,800 people. The plan from our recently launched strategic plan for the next few years is to deliver 1,200 additional social housing units up until the end of 2025. So that'll see significant growth for the organisation, but also reflect the wider geographical area that we're now active in. In terms of special needs that we work towards, predominantly but not exclusively, PMVT supports single person households. So the vast majority of the people that we work with through our homeless services or our drug treatment services, addiction services, are single males. However, we do work with smaller numbers of couples and families, and we work with young people leaving care. Obviously, through Housing First, we work with people sleeping rough and long-term homeless service users. So what we're trying to do as an AHB is to deliver housing that reflects their needs. So we work to a scattered site model. So we have a large volume of small to medium scale schemes or projects. We focus on urban centre delivery, and we specialise very much in reusing existing structures or buildings, as well as a broader focus on urban regeneration through brownfield infill sites. So the focus of this presentation today is very much on the reuse strand of housing delivery within the Trust. So a lot of people will sort of look at derelict buildings, long-term vacant buildings, and sort of see a problem. For us, we see them as opportunities and solutions to the needs of the people that we're working with across our services. So we know that vacancy and dereliction are prevalent in all urban areas. We know it's an issue that creates strong opinions, high levels of frustration. It's an issue that is often raised with communities that we engage with. It's raised by individuals in our services, and it's raised by members of the public. It's very, I suppose, topical at the moment as well, given Housing for All and the Town Centre First approach that was referenced earlier in the conference. The other benefits, I suppose, that we see in reusing existing structures is the cost effectiveness, the issues that the benefits that we bring to communities by addressing antisocial behaviour that these buildings often bring or create. We're dealing with the blight of dereliction, and we're also having less of an impact on the environment than were we to go out and build new build apartment schemes. So there's multiple benefits or positive reasons for taking on these reuse projects. In terms of the means by which we deliver them, we take on sort of construction and regeneration, acquisition and refurbishment, which includes the buy and renew scheme. We use repair and leasing, and we work with third-party partnerships, so private developers, property owners. And I think the partnerships is the key thing to stress. So working with individual property owners, developers, key relationships with local authorities, the housing agency and the Department of Housing to make this all possible for the trust and those that we work with. Just to run you through quickly now some sample projects. So lots of photos, so hopefully it's interesting. So in 2014, we started a project which is sort of really the first significant reuse project for the Trust in Dublin 8 with the support of Dublin City Council. And it was a long-term vacant building set out in apartments. So the Trust was able to secure funding from the Saint-Gobain Foundation. Some of you will know Saint-Gobain, they're active and have a significant presence in the building materials industry in Ireland. They have a foundation based in France, and we were the first NGO in Ireland or the UK to draw down funding from that foundation for the provision of social housing. So we were able to secure funding from that in order to reuse the building, bring the 6 apartments up to current standards, and then provide housing pathways for people exiting care, people coming from sleeping rough, and also people coming out of our wider homeless services. So you can see the after photos of Pym Street there. 4 photos here on the left-hand side are the before photos, and the right-hand side are the after photos. So top left is St Agatha's Court in Dublin 1, again a partnership with Dublin City Council and Department of Housing, funded through the Capital Assistance Scheme. So reusing the existing structure, adding on new builds to either end of that existing structure, and we were able to, I suppose, knock the bedsits into 2 bedsits into one larger unit and provide new builds units at either end, so creating 11 high quality homes in St Agatha's Court. The bottom 2 photos are Hogan's Court, which is again a sort of donor funded project, partnership with Construction Industry Federation, where we took a vacant block of 12 sort of OAP units in Dublin 2 with the support of Dublin City Council and turned them around in 12 weeks from September to December with the support of the Construction Federation's members. So it sort of demonstrated the speed at which it could be done. It demonstrated the ability to bring additional funding beyond state funding into the social housing delivery scheme for the Trust, and it meant obviously 12 additional 1-bedroom units for people coming out of homelessness. These are some of the projects that the Trust is currently working on in Dublin. So in the top left, there's a pair of white buildings on Haddington Road in Dublin 4. There are 18 vacant apartments that are being brought back and will be completed next month. The top right is Townsend Street in Dublin 2. That will be 20 apartments, a reconfiguration of the long-term vacant upper floors and the reuse of the vacant commercial units on the ground floor. So that project will be commencing construction now in Q1 2022. Bottom left is a property we secured with support of the Housing Agency in Drumcondra, a long-term vacant property set out in 6 apartments. It has been vacant for over a decade. So that's a property that the Trust, again, will be bringing back starting in Q1 2022. And again, another project supported by the Housing Agency in the bottom right, Eagle Lodge and Rathmines, which will deliver 19 apartments. So across all those 4 projects, the predominant unit type are 1-beds. I think all but 1 unit will be a 1-bedroom apartment delivered across those schemes. So very much in keeping with what we need to deliver for people in our services and the wider homeless population. In Limerick, we're working on a number of different projects. So people attending the afternoon session yesterday were Clan Construction. We're presenting would have heard about our project in Moyross and South Hill, where we're using rapid builds modular construction as part of an infill project. But we have other projects in Limerick which are reusing existing structures. So Mallow Street in Limerick is a former OPW building, now in the ownership of Peter McVerry Trust, long-term vacant offices. So we're going to reuse the existing structure. And on the bottom right, you can see the impression, architect's impression of the finished scheme. So adding an additional floor to the existing Georgian building, and then also creating a muse scheme to the back. So taking the vacant offices and creating 12 one-bedroom apartments. And we're hoping to be on site there to begin in Q2 next year. These are some of the smaller projects that we work on. So I suppose the trust would work in projects up in the main from sort of, low single digits up till around the 20 unit mark is sort of where we operate. So on the top left is a former pub, which we are working to generate 3 apartments from. So there's a long rear to that property. On the bottom right is Lord Gerald Griffin Street. It's a protected structure, last used by the HSE, purchased by the trust, and is being brought back as 4 one-bedroom apartments. In Kildare, this is an example of a CAS buy and renew project. We bought the 2 derelict properties. We identified Athy as an area with significant levels of dereliction, worked with Kildare County Council, and we brought these 2 properties back earlier this year. And it took, I think, 3.5 months for the project from start to finish in terms of the construction work. So again, speed of reuse, cost effectiveness. And in this particular instance, we've been able to move ahead now to phase 2, which is to build or to progress a proposal for 2 muse houses at the back of these houses on the main street. So by buying the 2, we're delivering hopefully 4, and it's part of a wider regeneration on the street where we're bringing back 5 derelict properties in Athy. This is an alms house in Naas that has been transferred by another AHB to Peter McVerry Trust, previously supported under the CAS funding. It's long-term vacant, so the Trust will be using its own resources to bring it back up to habitable standards and create 3 one-bedroom apartments within the building. In Louth, just to sort of demonstrate the length or the types of buildings that we work with. These buildings were originally constructed in the alleys in Drogheda in 1712. They've been vacant, the majority have been vacant for over 20 years. As part of our proposal that we're working on with Louth County Council and Department of Housing through the CAS scheme, we are purchasing a proportion of the wider scheme. We will convert those into social housing units for single persons. We'll save the buildings for future generations. The money that we pay for purchasing those buildings will allow the small AHB or charity that originally built the properties to conserve the wider scheme. So by us getting involved in the alleys, we're actually saving a wider scheme of 16 houses for social use into the future that was originally built in 1712. In Cork, some of you may have recently seen that the Trust launched a strategic plan in Cork with the Taoiseach and opened our new regional office for the southern area. We worked here with the owner of a derelict, long-term vacant former permanent TSB bank. So we have a regional office on the ground floor. We have 4 one-bedroom apartments upstairs and a one-bedroom apartment to the rear. So again, demonstrating the types of buildings that we're working towards reusing and the outcomes that we're delivering for single-person households in different areas. Just to talk quickly about repair and leasing, the Trust is, I suppose, a strong advocate in trying to lead out on the repair and leasing scheme. We do it in a number of local authorities, and we work well with the vacant homes officers and the leasing teams. And what we're trying to do is to create quick wins for a social housing delivery, fits with our scattered site model, predominantly delivering small family homes to meet the needs of people that we're working with within our family services or the families that local authorities have within emergency accommodation in the homeless sector. So this is the first repair and lease delivered in Dublin. Under the scheme. This is the first repair and lease in Sunday as well in Cork that was delivered in Cork City. And this is the property we delivered earlier this year in Ballinasloe in Galway. So what we're doing within the repair and lease projects is to try and work within the 40,000 historic threshold or the new 60,000 threshold for refurbishment costs to do the best job possible, create energy upgrades, make sure the home is comfortable, meets all relevant standards, and that it's delivered quickly and effectively so that we can get people into new tenancies. This is our next repair and lease project in Drogheda. It's 6 one-bedroom apartments over our regional office in Drogheda. So again, what we look to do is where we develop regional offices to also co-locate social housing apartments. So that's a quick run through of what we do on reuse. Types of buildings are varied, houses, derelict, unfinished, banks, pubs, religious buildings, retail, over the shop, you name it. We will probably take a look at it and try and reuse it because we see an opportunity to provide a positive outcome for the people in our services. So hopefully that was relatively on time and a quick tour of what Peter McVerry Trust is trying to deliver for people in homelessness.
Francis, thank you very, very much. It was a fantastic example of special needs housing and how it can benefit not just the target group, but also the immediate neighbourhood and be of benefit for the town and the city. And we'll come back to you, Francis, with questions. I would like to invite Tina Donaghy. Tina is the Head of Development in Fold Housing Association to give her presentation. Welcome, Tina.
Thank you very much, Mary, and thank you to the ICSH for inviting me to speak today and to say good morning to the panel and to all the delegates who are tuned in. Sorry, I have froze. Right, so I'll just commence by telling you a bit about Fold Housing. We're a Tier 3 approved housing body with over 600 properties in management. We are seen as a specialist in housing for older people, in particular independent living. However, we do have 2 large state-of-the-art housing with care developments, both providing 24-hour care and support for 56 people in each. Fold are very active in our development program with a strong pipeline for future growth plans, and we delivered over 200 homes last year during the pandemic. If my presentation will look more at designing for people to age in place, and as opposed to Francis, we'll look at new build and how we design for our end users. We all know older people's a growing demographic in Ireland. People are living longer. That's as a result of increasing population, and we have that adds to our demand for greater levels of accommodation for the older demographic. Sort of considerations we take, and this would apply to any design for any end user, but they should include the start, as we all know, location, location, location. Then in addition, we look at housing need, the layout, the outlook of the properties, the maintainability, durability, sustainability, safety and security. They're all key components of a successful development. Understanding your clientele, and you can get to know their needs by interactive workshops, consultation with all the stakeholders, in particular the end users. And we would, and we're involved a lot with community consultation in all of our delivery. We look at design for life, flexibility of space to adapt over the lifetime of the property and of the tenants involved. One size does not fit all. We like to arrange each of the open plan spaces to make the most of their location within the building and also their outlook and what our tenants will be seeing during their time in the homes, benefiting from solar gain, looking over green spaces, trying not to create any sort of areas that would not make the property or the person have the best experience in their new home. We designed to promote ownership of the development, creating informal meeting spaces, little areas where people can gather, have a chat, feel safe, feel secure, and are sheltered as well. Sustainability, there's very small issues can be introduced to developments, to like a green roof, PV panels, pollinator gardens, water butts, very small items, as well as the bigger green agenda ticket items. We like to look at low maintenance materials to minimize future maintenance and be more predictable around cost. And inclusion of technology is vitally important for our client group. We're going to look at one particular development, not the award-winning development of last night, I may add, but another one of our Part 5 developments. It's the Muse in City West Village. It's a Part 5, but even with the development of Part 5, I just want to demonstrate how we can ensure that what we're doing is future-proofed. And the design brief here with this Part 5 was to create 20 one-bedroom apartments together with a community room for older people. Although the Part 5, although it was Part 5, early engagement allowed us to have really, really good positive input from the outset with the developer. We brought them to look at other developments we'd built elsewhere in the city, and also to say, look, how can we improve upon this? And they were up for the challenge, and they put forward a good, strong design team to meet our brief. And this came about just by having good relationship, by explaining to them our vision, and to bring them along to other developments and show them what we had. This early engagement is vital to ensure homes are future-proofed and that they meet the needs of the end users and allow people to age in place. And I would recommend this on any project that you're looking at. And in Fold, we use the same principles on all when given the opportunity, whether they're traditionally procured developments by ourselves or Part 5 developments. At the Muse, I mean, we applied Universal Design Guide standards. Space is a great thing in all our developments. We look at a minimum of 55 square meters for each unit. All the internal spaces are bright, spacious, and a good selection of robust and safe finishes. And it enables people just to come in, set their furniture down, and start enjoying their home. We have level access throughout the units and the development, so there's no-go areas. Every area is accessible to all our tenants. We like large open plan living, kitchen, dining. This allows for people with mobility issues, rollators, wheelchairs, that they can move freely about their property. Or visitors coming to the property. We provide large bedrooms that will facilitate accessibility, or if there's any future care needs, that carers can access the tenant from either side of the bed, or that they can bring in some other equipment. There's space within the bedrooms to allow this. We provide charging points for wheelchair users, or just to future-proof them. And each of our tenants has their own front door. We learned this from early engagement with tenants, that they especially if they were moving from homes, maybe 2, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom homes, that having their own front door was very important, and not walking into a hotel type foyer. They wanted this own front door, and that's proved, very valuable during the pandemic and kept people safe, that they were minimizing shared space. There's also clear wayfinding for residents that if they are confused, especially moving into a new development, or there's any visual impairments, that there's very clear signage to allow them to navigate their new homes and developments. And bearing in mind, they're moving into very modern, housing complexes, and something that they perhaps weren't used to previously. We have well-appointed balconies to allow them private outside space that they can enjoy, grow plants, sit out, have a coffee, whatever they must want to do. And also the inclusion of our Tunstall Lifeline equipment, that would be a minimum included in all our older persons developments. On this particular development, we also have a community room that allows for gathering and activities, and the tenants have full control of their door entry system, and they are the ones who control the access permitted to any visitors or people coming into the site. In terms of sustainability, I mean, obviously the location is vitally important, close to amenities, materials, and the energy efficiency attributes. We have a minimum of A3 building energy rating and easy to use controls. So for thermostatic radiator valves, for boiler controls, for thermostat controls, for door entry systems. We look, road test, try and get the most easy to use, easy to see control systems, because there's no point in having fancy, digital controls whenever our older people can't use them or can't see them, or they haven't got the agility to operate to their full capacity. So, and we provide training for all our tenants as well, and any equipment. We've high quality landscaping here, so it's the shared outside green spaces for the enjoyment of the tenants, and they can take ownership of that. The site is right adjacent to the Lewis station, which provides full accessibility. It is full accessibility, so you can leave your apartment on the 3rd floor and be sitting on the Lewis within a few minutes, and it's a smooth transition. With clear, safe wayfinding to refuge, recycling, Lewis, car parking, any way in and out of the site. We include a spare on the inside of the front door area for future automation of front doors if people need to have these automated going forward, and robust long life external finishes to maintain the buildings externally to ensure low maintenance into the future. CCTVs provided as an extra layer of security. And we also include 2 elevators to ensure backup if required, if there's a breakdown or one's undergoing maintenance or whatever, so as we can guarantee access and egress to all of our residents. We always apply secure by design standards throughout to make sure there's no hidden alleys, no areas where they're exposed or people may feel vulnerable. We know that this project's a success because we've had really high levels of satisfaction in our customer feedback. They love the location. They said it's excellent for older people, and they don't feel isolated because they see the activity in the Lewis. It's all the people coming to and from work. There's a shortcut gateway into the shops, and people feel safe and secure in this building. They like the inclusion of the Tunstall Lifeline CCTV and door access particularly, and the quality secure doors and windows that we utilise. So really then looking at the second part of my presentation, which is looking at the technology and what's capable. We look at technology not in isolation, but this is just such a growing element of our design that I think it deserves its own piece in this. So technology is such an important aspect of all of our lives. The pandemic has fast-tracked that technology into all aspects of ordering goods, services, paying bills, banking, or just being here today in this remote conference that we're all coming from all areas of the country and in many ways the world, from some of our previous speakers in the week. Social networking is important for family, friends, groups to stay connected, and technology is essential for delivery of many health benefits. And we've heard these throughout various presentations: Munder and diabetes, medication reminders, to name a few. Many of the technologies we use enable people to live safely and independently where they wouldn't be able to do so without that technology. And technologies currently in use and under development lessen the demands on carers, both formal and informal. When someone's safe and they're safe, there's no need in you having to be there on site. So with the use of technology, anything is possible. And we can manage buildings remotely, adjusting heating thermostats, controlling lighting, remotely opening doors, detecting water leaks, and just to keep our tenants safe and connected if there's an emergency. So really the fold approach to technology is all our older persons accommodations fitted with some form of technology. The equipment will vary depending on the needs of the tenant and the nature of the development. Any additional equipment can be put in place at short time, if it's needed. Say if someone's coming out of hospital or there's a increased requirement due to a medical emergency. Telecare is a lifeline that links our tenants to a 24-hour contact centre. It's installed in most of our properties, and from the outset, The contact centre will have details of the tenants, their next of kin, their medical practitioners, or any notifiable medical conditions that they may have, and they'll know if there's a press or an emergency call, what would possibly may be needed. And we encourage our tenants just to press the button and say hello, good morning, and to make them comfortable and feel at ease using this equipment. We also can provide pendants to alert the contact centre for people who get more frail or aren't as confident living in their home, and getting them to wear the pendant is one thing, but they can use it as a means of calling for help if a slip or a fall. There's also things like pressure mats, intruder alarms centrally linked, and those offers can be either increased, or put in place if needed. We're also working with a company called Smart Zone. They're putting in some leak detection equipment in apartments, but it's not just about saving on insurance and ensuring maintenance in the building. This can also allow us to look in and make sure people are using their property, they're safe. We can tell if they flush the toilet, and it allows us to look into them to make sure they're safe without intruding on them. With technology, anything is possible. So really, just in conclusion, the pandemic has given us all an opportunity to review how we design our properties and able to manage them with our tenancies more efficiently and effectively. Digital literacy is fast becoming a fundamental requirement for full participation in life, and we need to bear that in mind. And technology is so important that we need to get our tenants connected and ensure they're comfortable in using that technology. Technologies under development offer the potential to deliver better outcomes for people, and in the main to keep them safe and connected. And I would recommend just to keep it simple, non-intrusive and user-friendly when you're considering that. Thank you very much for listening, and I or any of my development team would be happy to help anyone with any design briefs, any questions you have around any of the things that I've talked about. Just thank you.
Thank you very much for Tina for that presentation. I'll go straight to questions because we're quite tight on time there. We've about 6 minutes. I'm going to start off just some questions for the department, Pat, if you don't mind. Just two quick ones, which is, what is the ambition for special needs housing over the next 5 years? Will it grow significantly? Also, are CAS projects being held up for long periods in the custom house, and can that is there an opportunity cost in that with construction inflation, higher prices, and is there a better way to ensure a faster turnaround and better value for money for small projects? And we'll keep the answers quite brief because we need to, there are a few more coming in.
Yeah, the first question, I suppose it would be unfair of me to answer it because I don't know the full extent of what all I can talk about, I suppose, is the area that's relevant to my own area, which is I have responsibility for the capital assistance scheme and the communal facility scheme as opposed to the community facility scheme. And that's an ambitious target. We have 96 million for spending this year, and we generally spend out in full on that subhead and on that very worthwhile housing accommodation. I think Francis there and Peter McVerry mentioned several projects that were CAS funded, and we're glad to be working with him and all the AHBs in providing capital assistance scheme funding for the provision of accommodation for, among other priority housing needs, homeless, disabled, elderly, care leavers, and that. The overall, I suppose, the element with regard to whether CAS projects are being held up in the custom house, it's not something I'm aware of, but if anybody wants to contact me directly with a specific project that they deem has been held up, and I won't say it's been held up because I cannot say that, without that, it would be unfair on anybody, on either the personnel in the department or indeed our area where we deal with an AHB. That makes all projects have obstacles to get over, whether it should be design, whether it should be value for money, whether it should be everything, planning. There could be several issues that may be holding it up. It may not be held up at our end. It may appear that way. But look, I'm available to talk to anybody. There are all the teams in the Custom House or in Ballina or in Wexford with regard to getting any project that they deem is being held up, we'll definitely talk to them about it and see how to get over that process.
Francis, can I go to you? There's a question in relation to the 18 to 20 unit apartment blocks that will they all be for formerly homeless clients, or will there be a mix of homeless and general needs clients?
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, we'll be working with the local authority around the allocations, making sure the appropriate mix for the sustainability of the developments. But we do work predominantly with homeless households or people at risk or with a history of homelessness. So you'd expect that the majority of people that would be allocated to our units would have a history of homelessness or come directly from Sleeping Rough or homeless hostels. But there are care leavers, there's people that are in maybe unsuitable private accommodation that are being referred into us as well.
Okay. And thank you, Francis. And Tom, can I ask you just to comment on the Housing Finance Agency? Has it explored off balance and how its funding may be off balance?
Sure, Mary. Yeah, the short answer is we have explored it, and it's not an easy one. The HFA's borrowings are all guaranteed by the Minister for Finance, and that makes off-balance sheet almost impossible. We have explored the idea of special purpose vehicles, which were a popular idea there recently, but it's just next to impossible at the moment to get HFA's funding off balance sheet, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Tina, can I just a couple of ones for you? One is how you fund assistive technology installation and servicing. Also, are you working with a range of local authorities in terms of these developments for older persons? And finally, should there be a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms for elderly schemes rather than just a dominance of 1 bedroom?
Hi, thank you very much, Mary. Basically, how we fund all of our projects, we build the technology into the construction costs, and we fund that through, in the main, we've been supported by the Housing Finance Agency and through the Department of Housing and the local authorities using CAF, P&A funding, and that's a cost built in, and we see it as a vital part of the design. It's part of the fabric of the building, and it goes part and parcel, so that is an eligible cost. Secondly, we work with a range of local authorities. We work with all 4 Dublin local authorities, and we're also working with Louth and Meath county councils. We are interested in looking in other areas, but our main concentration is Dublin, Greater Dublin area and the surrounding counties, but we're more than happy to talk to anyone, but it needs to be practical in terms of distance. And on many of our developments, we have a combination of 1 and 2 bedrooms. On this particular development, it's 21 bedroom apartments. We do find the majority of our older person accommodation, a lot of the occupants are single occupants, and obviously on differential rent models, you know, it's just more cost effective for 1 beds. But we absolutely do a lot of downsizing. You know, people are a bit reluctant to go into a 1 bed, and you know they'd be happier for the 2. So we do a mix of 1s and 2s. In the main, mostly 1s with a small number of 2s. However, the apartments are quite large, and there's great opportunity to have, like, you know, a bed, sofa or whatever for people to come and stay over. And I think people are really surprised when they get in and see the size of the accommodation, you know, as opposed to what maybe the accommodation they were living in while in homes. But I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Tina. I'm sorry I can't reach the other questions, but thank you very much to all our speakers. You'll see some of the comments and very positive feedback there in the Q&A, and I hope you read them. It was a really stimulating session, and thank you very much to Tom, Francis and Tina this morning.